Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 8 of the Pixar Post Podcast. As usual, I'm TJ.
And I'm Julie.
And we are, it's mostly a news week. There's not as much in terms of clips or those types of things. We do have a couple quick clips, but here's what we're going to talk about this week. We're going to talk a little bit about the female touch within the directing role within Pixar. There's been a lot of talk about it within the last couple weeks, months, years, as we've heard things about, obviously leading the charge with Brenda Chapman. So we want to discuss this and kind of break it down a little bit. Mm-hmm. We feel like we have a little bit of a different view to take on it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone has had a viewpoint kind of how we are viewing the situation.
Yeah, so we'll see. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some updates to the Monsters University store. We're going to talk about the Monsters University Gala preview, where you would have a chance to see the movie early. Some new ads or commercials for the school for Monsters University that were released, as well as a new Japanese trailer talking about Ed Catmull getting inducted, or not inducted, but honored at the Computer History Museum. But we're going to kick off this week by talking about Disney Infinity. And the biggest news here is that the release date for the game has changed. Originally, it was supposed to be June 18th, and now it has been moved to August 18th. The reasoning here that was said by John Pleasance, who's the co-president of Disney Interactive, which is their gaming division, he mentioned that it's going to align more closely with a more favorable retail season for them. Now, that does make total sense.
Yeah, the holidays are, obviously just around the corner when it comes to August and the fall time. But what I was also thinking is, I wonder if the date may change again, because the D23 Expo is in early to mid-August. And with this game, the Expo is August 9th to the 11th. And a week later is when Disney Infinity is now supposed to be released. So I wonder if maybe it might change again and be completely released and a huge party at the D23 Expo.
Oh, so maybe they'll bump it up to be through the 9th through the 11th.
I don't know. It's just my speculation.
That's a fun thought. I like that, because then it could be, they're selling it there, or they're selling exclusives there, because they do have so many exclusives that are at the D23 event.
Yeah, maybe even if it isn't launched, maybe they'll have at least some of the characters.
Yeah, you never know. So the other thing that John Pleasance did say, though, is that he wanted to stress that it has nothing to do with game glitches or problems with the development or anything along those lines. He promised that was not the case. He did say, though, that it is going to allow them to, essentially brush up on the game a little more.
Oh, of course. So
it'll allow them to do a couple more things. But at least we are made aware of it. It is relatively close to the launch date, but you now, as of today, can start pre-ordering the game as well. And then they've also released some information in regards to the power discs. And we had talked about that before on the podcast, but we're seeing some more images of them now. So we know there's going to be one circular or disc-shaped one, which will go underneath characters. So the circular ones go underneath the characters to enhance the character, and they can be stacked. So the one that's going to be coming out for that circular, is for Finn McMissile. Mm-hmm. The other ones are going to be hexagonal in shape, and those are going to be things that allow you to interact within the world of Disney Interactive. So those are going to be one for Nemo, one for Buzz Lightyear, and then another one for related to Carl from Up. It looks like it's going to be his cane.
He has walking cane with the tennis balls.
Yeah,
which we've seen a clip from the Disney Infinity trailers. You've already seen that.
Right, exactly. So we know it's going to be in there. So interesting, though, that it's going to be moved a little bit. But I do like your thought as far as the
D23 Expo. It's just my little speculation.
Give them a little bit more opportunity to push it out there.
It's a week, so
yeah. You never know.
I don't know. It's just
obviously, if they move it up at this point, it's not going to hurt them. If they delay it again, then people are going to start going, oh, okay, what's going on here?
Right.
But all right, so that's pretty cool. So the other thing that happened this week, or is going to be happening, I should say, upcoming, on April 27th, which is a Saturday, Ed Catmull is going to be honored in the Computer History Museum, and he's going to be receiving a Fellow Award. So what is the Fellow Award?
Yeah, well, the Fellow Award has been held by the Computer History Museum, I should say, has been holding this award show since 1987. The Fellow Awards have been honored to individuals in the advancement of computer technology, basically highlighting and preserving the stories of these esteemed technology heroes for future generations to come to the museum to see.
Yeah, and it's a pretty interesting looking award too. I mean, most of them that you see throughout award seasons are very like solid gold, or they have some shape, but it's a solid shape. This is actually, it almost looks like it
kind of looks futuristic in a way.
Yeah, it's futuristic. It looks like it's almost like a really...
Which would make sense. Computers.
Right. It looks like it's like a crazy perfume bottle at some level, though.
Yeah, it does.
It's got the silvery top, and it's got like this teal, like, layered...
Yeah, it has like a Caribbean ocean. That's what it reminds me of. The blue is so...
Yeah.
It's very pretty.
Yeah, so it's actually a really neat award. I think it's pretty darn cool. Yeah. And if you haven't seen it, definitely head to our website. It'll be within the post within the last week, and then we'll also have it, of course, on the show notes for episode 8 here. But the other thing that's kind of cool, if you haven't seen this post that we've done, is one of our readers, actually last May, went to the Computer History Museum and took a photo of the Pixar image computer that was there. And it's kind of neat because it has a... picture hung above it of the Monsters Incorporated original release that has some information there. So it's pretty neat. So if you haven't seen that, definitely check out that post on our site as well, because it shows a picture of that first Pixar image computer that was released. So it's pretty cool.
Right.
So now it'll make sense that Ed's inducted or honored in the Computer History Museum along with the computer. Mm-hmm. So following up on some newer news this week, a Monsters University Japanese version or Japanese language trailer was released this week, and there's a ton of new footage that's in it. It was actually kind of shocking how much new footage was included in it.
Yeah, and you know what? I think for international trailers, I think what they do is I think they release more clips than they would in the domestic trailers, maybe to pump up the crowd over the international crowd, to get them to flock to the movie theaters. Maybe, I don't know, I could be kind of pulling straws, but
who knows?
It's just kind of my opinion, because the last couple, trailers that have been released, the domestic ones, they kind of show the story, but you're still kind of left like, what,
right,
with questions. Where the international ones, you're still left with questions, but
it's giving a lot more.
Few less questions,
Right, yeah. You obviously see tons of new monsters. We get a lot more information as far as the storyline, like you were mentioning. And if you don't want to hear spoilers, just skip ahead a minute here. But
there's a big backstory about Mike Wazowski that I think was revealed.
Well, that he went to Monsters Incorporated when he was young Mike Wazowski, and he's super cute as Mike Wazowski.
Looks like it's on a field trip, and I'm not sure if George Sanderson was there. I was really trying to look. I thought I saw him, but... Right,
because if anybody doesn't know, George Sanderson's one that Julie always looks for.
I love George Sanderson.
So yeah, Mike, super cute. He gets his Monsters University... Monsters University hat.
Yes.
From one of the workers, it looks like, at Monsters Incorporated, and it looks like that's the same hat because of the tear mark that he starts wearing once he attends and starts going to Monsters University.
Right.
But the big story part that Dan Scanlon has talked about on the Monsters Incorporated DVD, so there's a little featurette on there that we've posted and talked about a couple weeks ago, but what... Dan Scanlon, the director, talks about is that Mike and Sully, we know at some point, get kicked out of the scare school. Mm-hmm. And this clip, this trailer shows that, where essentially they're having doesn't look like a good conversation with Dean Hardscrabble.
Heart-to-heart with the Dean.
Where you can tell that, she's kicking him out. Then from there, they're going to be going through their training and trying to figure out how they're going to get back into it. It doesn't talk about, specifically what they're going to do to get back in, but you get the idea.
You get the idea that that's the moment.
Yeah, and then the other thing that we noticed in it that was, we had posted on our site too, it kind of confused me a little bit, was the teeth for the slug. So it's not a big deal, but it just...
Well, the slug, when they show the clip, and they show it in both the domestic and the international trailers, is the slug that he goes, "Oh no, I can't be late on the first day."
Yeah. Oh man, I can't be late on the first day.
Yeah, and he tries to run, but he's a slug, so he's not going anywhere.
Right. So in the first version or American version of the trailers that we had seen, he's got normal looking teeth in his slug mouth, I guess, if slug had teeth. And in the Japanese language version, he's got long, two front long teeth that almost look like it would be like a gopher teeth or something like that, where the two front are very prominent.
Right, very exaggerated.
So it's interesting. So it'd be interesting to see if it's just different between the two versions of the movies, international and domestic, or if it's going to be changed in both versions, one or the other.
Yeah.
Our readers have commented on that post and said that there were other things in the background, for instance, a postcard in Toy Story 3 that was different, things like that. So between the trailer and the actual release. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of that. So then additionally, there was 2 Monsters University fake commercials again. They've been doing this series of fake commercials, continuing that theme of making it feel like and advertise it as if it's a real university.
Which I love. I mean, the marketing geniuses at Pixar that are in charge of monstersuniversity.com are incredible. I mean, they're real.
Yeah, they're doing it right for sure.
Oh, if you watch them, it's just like, hey, wait a second.
Well, since these are in English, let's take a listen to these 2 trailers that were released. Well, obviously, we didn't want to play the Japanese trailer, the Japanese language one, but let's play these for you.
There is a place where legacy and tradition are the gateway to new opportunities, where faculty and students are fearless in the pursuit of knowledge. It's an institution that writes a rich history while opening the doors to the future, one student at a time, where diversity, integrity, and strength are not just words. They're on the final. Welcome to Monsters University.
All right, so obviously you could tell that that's, the seriousness of, they've got the great voiceover work, and the imagery on the screen is going from images outside the school to inside the school to in classes, cultural events at the college, on campus grounds, all those kind of things.
Yeah, most of the clips are clips that we've already seen. Again, there's just quick snippets of new footage, so that's always exciting that they're just throwing quick little glimpses.
Yeah, there's like a 1-second clip of Art running around on his fingertips.
Yeah, into like a scare room.
Yeah, it looks pretty darn cool because he's got this, woo, 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 woo.
And Art is one of your favorites.
Oh, yeah, he's like juking around the room. Yeah. It's pretty cool. So anyways, let's take a listen to the second trailer as well.
You may see a library. We see commitment to education, fueled by a love for discovery. You may see a laboratory. We see cutting-edge research, opening doors to the future. You may see a campus. We see talent, passion, and leadership.
I can see my tomorrow
in a family of thousands.
You may see generations of distinction. We see Monsters University.
Yeah, there you go. Wrapping it up with the student profiles, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So, speaking of monstersuniversity.com, last night one of the other Pixar sites out there mentioned or noticed that there was a Monsters University window cling that was available in the Monsters University store now as well. And it's not something you can just buy by itself. You have to actually purchase another item in the Monsters University store, and then you use the code MONSTERS in all capital letters, again, monsters plural, and then you can redeem, if you will, and get the Monsters University window cling for $2 instead of its list price of $4.50.
Right.
And it doesn't affect the shipping price or anything like that by adding it on. So of course we had to order it up. So
yes, I think we own everything on the Monsters University store.
Well, not everything, but a lot
You're right.
of it.
We don't have the pennant.
Right. Or the mug. We actually don't have the mug either.
The travel mug.
The travel mug. Yes. Because I'm crazy and
But we have the forearm sweatshirt.
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe, speaking of the forearm sweatshirt, that's an adult male sweatshirt is how they list it in the Monsters University store. Mm-hmm. We're expecting that in the weeks coming there's going to be a young boys version, or just a boys version. I guess all boys are young version as well. That's going to be coming out to match that same exact style of the adult version.
Right. Oh my gosh.
I know, you have a kid. That's awesome.
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, our nephew is going to go crazy for that. He's going to want that for sure. That's a Halloween costume.
Well, I already said that's going to be our Halloween costume. So, dang it, we need to borrow one of our nephews for Halloween so we can both wear the sweatshirts together.
Yeah,
how cool would that be?
That's cool.
Yeah. So, it's going along the same lines. So, anyways, keep an eye out for that. But going along the same lines of Monsters University, there's going to be a Monsters University gala preview within Pixar Studios on Saturday, June 15th. So just a few days before the theatrical release, June 21st. And the Monsters University Gala preview was something... It supports the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, and John and Nancy Lasseter have supported this foundation immensely over the years because their son Sam actually has type 1 diabetes. So this is obviously true, dear to their hearts. And they did this not too long ago, a couple years ago, when Cars 2 was released.
Yeah, 2011.
And they ended up raising over $1 million at that event. So you can tell the scale of this. So what are you going to be able to do? So you can obviously get within Pixar, which of course is normally closed. You'll be able to see the movie early. So that'll be pretty darn neat.
Right.
And you'll have a chance to bid.
And you get to dress up and be fancy.
Yeah, it's a full-on black tie affair. Definitely everybody's dressed to their best.
Every girl loves to get dressed up, put on heels.
And then you can also, they do an official auction style bidding on Pixar artwork where they'll have, give you your little auctioneer number that you can raise. And, it's pretty darn neat.
Yeah.
So, but it's not, they said that they may open it up for individual ticket sales in the future. And those tickets are on sale between February 28th, so that's been ongoing, and June 13th is when it closes. They essentially said that they're not sure if they're going to be releasing individual tickets at this point, but right now they sell them as essentially tables, round tables, that your sponsorship level ranges anywhere from $15,000 to $100,000. So as you can tell, it is a very high end event that they're looking to raise money very seriously for the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, and that's great.
That is wonderful. Anytime these charities can benefit from, such kindness and generosity,
right?
It's amazing.
Yeah, so. And obviously they know people want to get within Pixar, they want to see the movie early, so you're not only helping out something, but it's the perfect level of exclusivity that you want,
right? Where
you get to bid on the exclusive Pixar artwork that's probably going to be some, not lithographs or prints that have been multiplied. It's probably going to be original artwork,
right,
mixed in with some other things.
And everything going to a great cause.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, obviously I'm sure they're going to try to be topping the $1 million mark that they did, in 2011. So we'll see where that lands.
Oh, yeah.
So just as a quick side note as well, obviously speaking of charities, there were the eBay auctions this week for Artists Help Japan, which is put on by Pixar artist Dice Sasumi, which is his way of giving back to the Japanese earthquake, the earthquake that happened that ended up triggering a tsunami and, all those other horrific events that happened over there. So it's the 2-year anniversary. He did a series of auctions just the other day. In fact, they closed yesterday, which was March 13th. And what a cool set of art that you could bid on. And I know in the years past that he did this over a series of weeks.
Right.
So you can bid on, for instance, in case anybody didn't see it, you can bid on, he had some exclusive artwork for Brave and Cars 2. He had what we actually won, which is pretty darn neat, is we won a exclusive crew-only gift of a Brave blanket. And describe the blanket, if you will.
Well, it has the... it's the top layer kind of looks like bear fur.
Yeah, it's very thick.
Very thick. Kind
dark
of,
brown.
Yeah, brownish black, and it has the big Brave emblem on it. And then the other side, what is that?
Is the official Clan Dunbrock tartan.
Yeah, which is so incredible. And I don't know if all of our listeners know this, but Brave is... one in my top 3 all-time Pixar films. I don't have a top 1, a top 2, top 3. I just have a top 3.
Yeah.
I love it. I watch it all the time. It's one of my favorites. So I am so excited
I know
that
to
we
have
have
that.
this.
Well, yeah, and the other thing that's cool too is we were seeing so much of it during the award season where Mark was having it because he was always wearing his kilt.
Right.
So it's, so people that, maybe can't picture it right off the top of their head, it's the kilt.
Right.
So Clandunbrock Tartan official. It's coming to our house. We're going to be excited about it. And of course, we'll have pictures and all the other stuff that we'll take of it. But we're pretty excited to have the crew gift.
Yeah.
So what I was getting at, though, is that in the years past, Dice has put on his Artist Help Japan eBay auctions he's done it over a couple weeks. I don't know if he's going to do that again this year, but definitely stay tuned to our website, because if he does list any more, we'll be sure to let everybody know that they can continue to bid on these items.
Yeah, I mean, not only does he have exclusive Pixar merchandise, he has his own art on there. I mean, he is an amazing artist, and if you are a fan of any of the Art of Pixar books, especially the Art of Toy Story 3 book, you will see so much of his work in there.
Right.
I mean, he's an incredible artist, painter. He had 2 oil paintings that were phenomenal.
One was an oil painting, one was a watercolor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yep.
Amazing.
Right. Yeah, and not related to Pixar. They were not of characters. It was
it was just original.
One was a flower in like a
still
vase.
Life.
Yeah, still life, and then the other one was like of a building, a structure, almost church-like.
Yeah.
Very cool. That was the watercolor, and there's a whole bunch of
his sketch travel stuff.
Sketch travel,
which we are fans of the sketch travel. And we own that book, which is incredible. If you are an artist, if you like art, this sketch travel book was actually, it traveled around the world in between all these other artists' hands. Obviously, the book isn't the original one. It is, a production. But still, it's incredible. It's inspiring.
Right. Yeah, and it's really cool because they didn't give any directive. They just sent, we're going off on a total sidebar here, but they sent one book in this secure case.
Yeah.
And they sent it around to all these artists around the globe and passed it from one to the next and didn't tell them anything specifically that you have to draw about this or whatever. Everybody drew it. And then Dice got that back, collaborated it all, and ended up printing a book on it. And that's
there's pictures and stories. I mean, there's paintings and sketches. I mean, every artist uses different,
right, mediums.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty darn cool. So one thing we wanted to shift to is, you had mentioned that Brave is in your top 3.
Yes.
There's been a lot of chatter in the last week, over the last months and years, like we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, about specifically Brave with Brenda Chapman and her, being replaced or, co-directing with Mark Andrews. Obviously, she still held enough of a presence within the movie to keep that co-director title. But the one thing that we feel that we want to just discuss is maybe people have been a little too
negative
and harsh on
Yes.
Pixar. Because, the conversation that's going on is that people feel that Pixar is a boys' club, they don't have any female directors, and that this is a major problem. So what we wanted to discuss, though, is we don't think
that at all.
We don't believe it. We don't think it. And I guess I just don't appreciate the sentiment that Pixar would purposefully not be putting women in these roles. And what we tried to do is dig in a little bit deeper into some other roles and try to come up with the real story behind this. Why aren't there as many women directors in the animation world? Mm-hmm. So let's take a look at it. So there are, as we mentioned, there's big support within Pixar. So there's, at the producer level, there's Darla Anderson, who's produced everything from Bug's Life, Monsters Incorporated, Cars, a short Mater and the Ghostlight, as well as Toy Story 3. Mm-hmm. Darla has been there since the beginning, and I have to believe if, as a producer and one of the main voices within Pixar, if she truly felt like this was an issue, she would push it, and she would make it happen.
Right.
You have to look at other roles that are in there, like Catherine Serafian, who obviously, from a Brave perspective, was the producer of Brave and of the short Lifted. But she has literally been there since the beginning and has grown from a production schedules coordinator, an art department manager. She's been a part of a marketing department. She's been a production supervisor, as well as then a production manager, to then move to the producing role. Mm-hmm. So you can clearly see that in some way they're not holding women back.
No, not
They're
at
growing
all.
within it. You have other huge positions that they always tout and are on all of the in the art of books, in the lighting and art departments. You have Danielle Feinberg, Sharon Callahan, Tia Cratter, who are instrumental, and they definitely bring them to the forefront.
Amazing women at Pixar. And
Right.
these are just naming a few.
Yeah, and
I mean,
we're not
there's
talking about...
so many animators, everybody.
Right.
I mean, incredible.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the list goes on. And the proliferation of women within Pixar has increased.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we think is the biggest reason for that.
And this is, I think, a reason that people aren't thinking about.
Yeah, and this is something that definitely needs to be discussed. And that's the only reason we're kind of dipping our toes in this water. Because, we do stay out of the way of anything that's considered negative. Mm-hmm. We don't contribute to it. But when we feel like we have an opinion that we need to voice about something, and especially when it has maybe an angle that people haven't thought about, this is what we're going to talk about. So obviously we've talked about some of the key women within Pixar. We've talked about that we feel like it's not a problem. So let's look at it from another angle. So the Cal Arts graduation class gets discussed a lot in the world of Pixar.
Of course.
In the world of all animation.
It's where it began.
Yes, and the very first character animation program that graduated in the mid to late 70s, I think it was 75, was John Lasseter and Brad Bird. So out of that class. Now, if you look at that graduating class of the character animation program from 1975, you're going to see 2 females out of 15 males that were in that class. Later graduates from Cal Arts include, that are Pixarians now, are Andrew Stanton, Pete Docter, Brenda Chapman was with Pixar, Mark Andrews, Ralph Eggleston, Peter Sohn, and many more current artists, Alston Madison, the list goes on and on. Mm-hmm. But, obviously I mentioned the ratio of the early graduating classes of being 2 females of a total of 15 graduates. So let's look at how that graduating class looks now. If you research that, the level of male and female graduates in the character animation program has almost completely leveled out, if not being completely level, between male and female.
I would completely agree with that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we looked it up online. We've talked with people about this.
It is pretty 50-50 now.
Right. So if we look at computer technology, and we're not going to tackle all of animation and why this, is a potential problem for all of animation. We're talking about it from Pixar because that's what our podcast is about. Mm-hmm. But from a Pixar perspective, the early artists within Pixar, the early creators that created the programming, the whole genre of computer graphics, were all from Lucas, which were essentially computer dorks, and I can say that because I'm a computer dork.
Me too.
Yeah, but they were early computer dorks, and that was traditionally males. Males lent themselves towards being engineers and computer... Yeah.
Obviously, the times are changing.
Right. There's more and more people getting involved. It's a long-winded way of saying the early designers, the early founders of computer animation were male. Mm-hmm. The early graduates from Cal Arts and other arts schools were mostly males in those classes. So it's not a surprise to me to hear that at the current height in the directing positions.
Because all of those people have been there for how many years?
Right.
They've worked their way up.
You work your way up. And there's really not that many directors. I mean, if you think about it, the main directors are John Lasseter, Andrew Stanton, Pete Docter. The list obviously expands from there. You have Brad Bird that's in there, but I mean, obviously he was brought in after with doing Iron Giant and all those kind of things. But I'm talking about the initial Pixar animators. Those were the initial Pixar animators that became directors. They moved into that role. Mm-hmm. It's not a surprise to me that they were the initial directors, and we're now seeing that second generation.
Right.
That second generation, because we're talking about graduates in the 80s and 90s now, was still leaning a little more towards more heavily male in graduating classes. I'm not expecting to see an overnight shift and see female directors at Pixar, but I'm expecting, and we are expecting, that because of that balance in the graduating classes now, that as time moves forward, that will certainly balance as well.
And we have to think about it not just as a male-female thing, but as Pixar is a studio that runs on story. If the story isn't working, there's going to be a change made, which I think something with Brave, something wasn't working, they made a change. They did it with Ratatouille. They'll do it with a film in the future. It's always going to happen.
Right.
I think it was just such a hot topic because how could this was the first, and I just wish that people would stop giving it such a negative light, because I thought Brave was absolutely phenomenal. And I felt like it was almost kind of storm cloud over it.
Right.
And I think Brenda Chapman, what she contributed to Brave was amazing.
Of course, the original creator.
Amazing.
It was her idea. Right.
But I'm not one to judge the decisions that were made behind the scenes to make that change. When Brave was released, I loved it.
Right.
So obviously the change that was made worked because I was in love with it. Now, I don't know what it could have been, but I know what it was and what it was released as, and it was perfection.
Yeah, and obviously that's our view on it. Other people certainly have their views. But, you know, the other emphasis that's always put out there when this is discussed from a direction standpoint is that it almost comes across like there's a desperate need for a female touch and presence within Pixar. And I think one of the things that needs to be thought about a little more then is if you're looking for that female touch, that's really going to be developed within that story phase. So if that's the case, people that are arguing as well for more female directors should also be equally pushing for female story developers, you know, that are in the story department, that are doing storyboarding and developing and creating that from the very base level. So I think that's something that just needs to be at least considered. We're certainly not saying we're right. We're just throwing a perspective out there and thinking about it in terms of a broader scale than just, you know, Pixar.
Why isn't this? I mean, it shouldn't be a negative thing at all. Right.
Yeah, and like I said,
there's such a powerful female present to me at Pixar. I mean, I look up to some of these artists, and Danielle Feinberg, I think is amazing.
Right.
Like, she's one of my favorites. Like, I just think her lighting techniques are incredible, and she's a director of photography.
Right.
You know, as well as many other roles that she's held at Pixar. Mm-hmm. So, to me, I just think this is a hot button for some people to kind of get negative on.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost along the same lines of the people that kind of pile on with saying that, you know, Pixar is just a sequel house when they don't know anything about it. They just jump on because they're hearing Monsters University, they're hearing Cars 2,
we're not
Toy Story 3.
Part of that studio. We don't know. No one knows unless you're in it.
Right. And then they don't know that, you know, there's the Good Dinosaur, an original. There's the Inside Out, if that's what it stays. Brave was an original. You have the, you know, the Dia de los Muertos play on. Yeah, I just feel like there's a little bit of a negative spin that's going on in Pixar out there right now. Not within Pixar.
Not within Pixar.
But
just
within
people saying stuff.
People saying stuff. And it's a lot of op-ed pieces where it's essentially... And it's on big sites. You know, there's big news media sites that are hosting this, but unfortunately, because of that big news media backing, it's getting so much more attention. But what people still need to realize is that, much like what we're doing here, it still is an opinion piece.
Right.
It's not published as fact. It's published in the opinion section on these sites. So just keep that in mind. Again, we're not saying we're right.
No, we're just saying this is our opinion.
Right. And I think it needs to be just maybe a little more broadly spread. So, anyways, sorry to go off on a little tangent there and definitely get a little long-winded on that. But like I said, we felt like it needed to be discussed. So, on a happy note, obviously you know we love Brave. We're so passionate for Pixar, and that's why we had to talk about this.
Yep.
So, that about wraps it up for this week. We can't wait to see what's going to happen, and if, like I mentioned, if anything comes up with any new auctions for Artists Help Japan or anything like that, and as soon as we get that Brave blanket, we'll be sure to post pictures on it. Could be a couple weeks to get that, but we're excited about what's coming up in the next week as well, so we'll be sure to talk to you next week, and in the meantime, Be sure to tune in to PixarPost.com all week for the latest Pixar news. Signing off, I'm TJ.
And I'm Julie.
And have a great day.